It's a new year. It's the same faces: Jake Garriani, Karthik Venkatraman, John Howard. This is the final quarter on CBS 8+. We get rolling right now.
The final quarter begins right now.
Well, fellas, it is 2025. We have a college football playoff to talk about. We have an NFL playoff to talk about. But first, the news that has rocked our community here in San Diego. The San Diego Padres' control of the club seems to be up in the air. First of all, before we get to it, Karthik, John, how are we doing in 2025, fellas?
I'm thrilled that the new year is upon us and can't wait for it to unfold. Great things lie ahead. I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
We got a little Bill Walton in there.
Exactly.
I love it.
2025 has been good so far. Nothing to complain about. Feeling good about it, and hopefully it doesn't go by as fast as 2024 because it felt like that year zoomed by, man.
It did.
It has not been a great start to 2025 for any San Diego Padre fan because uncertainty is the last thing these fans want. And what came out just a little while ago, early in the year, was Sheil Seidler, the wife of the late great owner Peter Seidler, filing a lawsuit in Texas talking about the control of the San Diego Padres. The lawsuit is against two of Peter's brothers for control. All things talking about the trust, where the control is going. As you guys kind of break this down, what are your thoughts on where this is headed?
Well, if I can read one of the quotes from Matt Seidler's letter yesterday, quote, "The false accusations in her complaint will not distract the Padres organization from continuing its great momentum on and off the field in San Diego," end quote. And I've got to disagree with that. I think it's going to be a big distraction, and the players at spring training will say, no, it's not. But I still think it's going to be something that's talked about by the fans all the time. And the last time we had anything similar to this, 2008, John Moores, the owner of the Padres, going through a divorce. And within 1 year of that divorce, he's wanting to sell the team to 12 investors led by Jeff Morad. And he finally gets rid of it 3 years later after 3 years of drama. This is a story that's not going to go away anytime soon. It's going to take months to unfold. It'll be very interesting for all of us to watch and see and listen, but I think it will be a distraction to some extent.
If there's anything we know about lawsuits is that they drag on for quite some time. And in so many cases, this is pretty much turned into like the Game of Thrones of who's gonna, control the San Diego Padres. I mean, how can this not be a distraction moving forward? It's already such a big national story with pretty much every national outlet picking it up. It's such a talking point. It's blowing up on social media. This is not something that's going away. And now with a lawsuit in place, this is something that's going to be very contentious moving forward. And it's never good when all the players that are involved are saying, oh, this is very laughable, or this person committed fraud, or whatever this is. This has gotten messy pretty quickly. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think you said it perfect right there, Karthik. Messy quickly. I mean, if you read the 90-plus page lawsuit that Sheil filed, there is some damning stuff in there. I mean, we hear talks of racism and trustees not going through it the right way, her not getting certain payments. I mean, stuff that is really, really damaging to character. Now, on the other side, the trust and the brothers have both come out and said this is completely false. There's no gray area here. I mean, there is he said, she said, and as we all know, there are three truths to every story. Yours, mine, and the truth, right? I mean, so we'll see how all this plays out. In court, really, I think, is the only way that is going to solve this. Because I feel like the Peter Seidler we all knew, or at least knew from the outside, was a guy that did not mess around. This guy had his T's crossed and his I's dotted. I would be shocked if everything he left behind, knowing where his health was at, and God rest him, he was an amazing human, knowing where his health was, that this was not laid out perfectly. And I think the course of court will show that as we move forward. But to your point, John, it's going to be a huge distraction. And now these two things have to run parallel, right? The season's coming. We're like 5 weeks away from spring training. This will not be over in 5 weeks. So all of this is going to simultaneously go into play. A.J. Preller is going to have to handle all this. Maybe he had a budget from before that he's sticking to. But again, John, I can't imagine this isn't a distraction. And again, Karthik, it got ugly quick, man.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
What I was going to say is a big point of contention is who is the control person?
Yeah.
And that control person has to be determined. And I think what you have is maybe the Seidler brothers will control and spend money one way, whereas Sheil might spend money another way. And when you have contracts coming up, and A.J. Preller wanting to sign certain players or extend certain players' contracts. That is all going through ownership and whoever the control person is. We know Jake is the control person of this show, and
not in this trust, baby. Not Karthik's fighting for it.
And it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens. But those decisions have to be made, and who makes them when all of this confusion is going on in the legal process?
I think it makes it double tough for Padres fans too, right? They have gone through this offseason in hopes of like maybe adding pieces, but obviously all the financial stuff that's come. And that's really been a difficult process for them because everybody likes to add pieces and get a stronger roster. Then on top of that, you have what's happened now with everything that's going on with the control person for the franchise. It's not been, probably one of the funner off seasons for Padres fans with how things have been going.
No doubt.
And there's a lot of moving parts. There's shifting pieces. There was this guy who was controlling the trust, then this guy, and then John Seidler was named control person, but it still has to be approved by Major League Baseball, and Shiel Seidler's trying to get that revoked. There is a ton to this. It is a lot to explain. If you want to take the deep dive into it, the 90-plus page document, everything, the letters, it's all up on CBS8.com. We encourage you, instead of just giving you our opinion, because this is very logistical, to go there, read it, educate yourself, and make up your own opinion. And again, all of this will be solved as we go through the court system there in Texas. But for the fans, yeah, not a great way to start 2025. As we were hoping for Roki Sasaki instead, we get lawsuits. Love it, love it. Let's move on to the NFL here on CBS 8+. It is postseason time, and the Chargers have made that postseason under year one of Jim Harbaugh. They will head to Houston to take on the Texans in the wild card game. That is a game you can watch Saturday, 1:30 on CBS 8. Guys, I'll be the first to admit I spent all year bashing the Chargers and how soft their schedule has been. Boy, did they get the softest playoff matchup of all the teams, huh? I mean, they get, I think, in my opinion, the easiest matchup in the postseason right now. And I think they win this game. I'm gonna come straight out and say it. I think the Chargers beat the Texans in Houston. You're two.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Chargers are going to come out and win this game. I think their defense is going to be able to show up against, Texans offense that has C.J. Stroud, but not as good as his rookie season. They've had some injuries at the wide receiver position. Sometimes their offensive play calling can be kind of all over the place. Their defense tends to play good in stretches, but I just think the Chargers are going to have the pieces to win this. I think Texans have definitely been struggling. I think they're 4-5 over their last, several games throughout the last 9 games of the season after starting the season like 6-2 or something like that. So, this is a team that's definitely not trending the right direction. We can't say how well the Chargers are trending because, as Jake mentioned, their schedule has been soft. They've only beaten the Broncos twice with the winning record.
But they waxed the Chiefs' backups. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, moving forward. I don't think the Chargers are legit by any means, but if there were any matchup to get in the first round of the playoffs, I think that's why getting that 5 seed was so pivotal because you'd rather play the Texans than go on the road to take on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and Karthik, your point's well taken about the Texans not playing well lately, and what this playoff picture is missing is one of the best teams currently in football, the Cincinnati Bengals. They were red hot.
You knew John was going to bring the Bengals up.
They were red hot.
All you needed was a couple more losses, Johnny boy. All you needed was a couple more losses.
The Texans won their playoff spot at the beginning of the year, and the Bengals lost their playoff spot in the beginning of the season. They didn't finish quite strong enough. I agree. I have the Chargers winning this game. I have 2 upsets in the wild card weekend. One is in the AFC, that's the Chargers. The other is in the NFC. The other storyline I think very interesting this weekend is to see if and how much Ezekiel Elliott actually plays for the Chargers. I was shocked when they brought him onto the practice squad and signed him. It'll be very interesting to see what role he plays.
Yeah, they need bodies in that backfield with how banged up it has been. And Ezekiel Elliott wanted to get on a playoff contender, kind of a match made in heaven. We'll see if they bring him off the practice squad if he does get any touches, John. I think the one thing the Chargers do well, they play great defense. They run the ball. That does well in the postseason. That does well on the road. I think they win this game, as I mentioned. I think because of those factors. And look, you got Jim Harbaugh. He knows how to win games. He knows how to win in the postseason. Let's kind of that was the micro look. Let's go macro. Look at this entire NFL playoff bracket that we have here. That was focused on the Chargers and the Texans, but here we go. The Chiefs and the Lions getting those first-round byes. A 14-win wild card in the Minnesota Vikings taking on the LA Rams, Commanders, Bucks, Packers, Eagles, Broncos, Bills, an interesting matchup in my eyes. The reeling Steelers going to Baltimore. Which of these games catch your eye, fellas, and in which ones do you feel confident in kind of calling early?
Well, the other upset that I was calling is Washington over Tampa Bay. And granted, they've got the rookie at quarterback, but I think Jaden Daniels has proven himself to be a mature quarterback, even though he is just a rookie. The fact that Minnesota, with the season they had, has to play on the road, you wonder if there should be a rule change there. The Rams get to host because they were the division champ. Is that correct?
Correct,
I believe that's what it is.
Yep.
And so here you've got a team like Minnesota that's got to travel, even though they have significantly more wins than the Rams do. But, you know, the rules are what they are. I have Minnesota winning that game, and I have Washington getting the one upset this weekend in the NFC.
I'd probably pick Commanders over Bucks too. I don't know how consistent either of those teams are, and that's something I'd be interested to see, but I think Commanders probably get it done against the Bucks. I would say a flip verse to you, what you said, John, that when we're talking about the Vikings having to go on the road, I think the Rams get punished for having won their division. They're still going to be the 4 seed, and they have to face a 14-win team that's coming to their place. I don't really think it's much of a I mean, the reseeding, we can talk about that. College football playoffs the same way now with how we seed and who wins your conference championship, you get seeded higher. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Rams can be very happy that they have to face the Minnesota Vikings in the first round, whether it's home or on the road. I think that's definitely the major one that I'm looking out for. When I look at the first round of the playoffs, I mean, unless you consider the Chargers over the Texans an upset, which I don't, and I wouldn't consider the Vikings over the Rams an upset either, I don't really see a whole lot that might shake my perspective of one of the higher seeds getting beat.
I'm not going to sit here and call it, but a game I have my eye on at least that I think could be a good one for a little while is Denver at Buffalo. I love the Bills. The Bills are going to go. I think one of three teams comes out of the AFC, the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Bills. That's it to me. But I think Denver might hold their own there in Buffalo for a little bit. I think Bo Nix walks in there with a ton of swagger. The Broncos could hang around in that game and give the Bills a bit of a scare, but I agree with both of you on what you guys said. I also think that Commanders-Bucks game could be an absolute shootout. I mean, that could be a fun one right there.
I think that's the one to be most excited for in the first round of the playoffs.
The other, go ahead, Jake.
I also was just going to add, I wouldn't be stunned, given the way the Vikings have played all year, though, if that Rams-Vikings game is really, really close. I'm not going to go out on a limb here and say the Rams can't win that game. I mean, the Rams can win that game.
They could. If they cause enough defense havoc, yep.
I was going to branch off of what Karthik said about seedings and reseeding, and Kansas City and Detroit are there waiting, and they will play the lowest seed coming out of the winners. I would like to see a possible rule change. Forget what they're seeded. Let the Chiefs and the Lions decide which team they play.
This guy's over here pulling Monopoly money. I like it.
That would provide better talk amongst the fans, and it also would totally motivate some team.
I don't think they want that simply because of the disrespect and extra motivation they'd be giving to the team.
That no team would want to pick. They would be like, we're flipping a coin. We're not choosing at all.
It'd be great for the fans.
Fans get the pick.
The fans get the pick.
Oh, jeez.
Leave it up to the Pro Bowl, though. That's going so well. It's a brilliant idea. It'll never happen, but I do think because the teams would be like, no thanks. We're not picking at all. But that would be a lot of fun.
Well, they do a form of that in the MASL that the Soccers are in. And it's, so it's not like it's never been done, but for the NFL to ever adopt something like that, it's a long shot.
John Howard, the next Roger Goodell. I hear his contract's coming. Get involved in that. Speaking of brackets, we have the Final Four in college football. The Texas Longhorns in the Ohio State Buckeyes, as Gus Johnson would say, the world-famous Ohio State Buckeyes, taking on the Texas Longhorns, and then Penn State and Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl. And by the way, we had the perfect predictions from our own John Howard. Take a listen to this.
I'm taking the Michigan game as a wake-up call for Ohio State.
Oh, I like that take.
So I like the Buckeyes to win this game against Tennessee. And again, Mr. Brand Name, got Notre Dame winning. I got Texas winning. I got Ohio State winning. I got Penn State winning.
As our producer, Kazalavi's been practicing all week, Mr. Brand Name, John Howard, hitting the nail on the head. I think I should just leave my box and clear the platform for John Howard to just tell us who's winning a national championship, my friend.
Well, it's like the NCAA tournament pool. When I fill up my bracket, I don't put my name, I put key, like the teacher's grading key.
Here's your answer sheet, fellas.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm picking for this Final Four in the college football playoff, I'm picking Notre Dame. I'm picking both favorites. Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite, and Ohio State a touchdown favorite, 6 points. But I think the Michigan factor, the fact Ohio State lost to Michigan, was a total wake-up call. And I think that's got a little fire burning under their wallet side. And Notre Dame's win, I mean, they knocked off Georgia. Georgia, national champions 2 of the last 3 years. I think they have a mature head coach and has his guys prepared well. So I'm picking Notre Dame and Ohio State.
I'll take it one step further, all right?
I'm sure you will.
John Howard in his
heat.
2 first-round predictions. I picked every first round right. I picked all the quarterfinals right. And by golly, I'm going to pick all the semifinals right.
Wait, is
give
that
me
true?
Notre Dame over Penn State and give me Ohio State over Texas for the national championship. And Jake, yes, it's true. I said it all on TV.
Really?
You can go back and check it. Your boy is undefeated, and he will remain so as the college national champion is crowned with the Ohio State Buckeyes.
How did we miss that? Maybe it's because I didn't want to go back and look at the tape because I was the opposite, and I think I picked every single game
like, skip,
wrong.
skip.
I was like, there's no need to go back and look at that tape. Thank goodness it was before the break. I didn't have to live up
People
to
forgot. People forgot.
People forgot until I just brought it up. If you can't call yourself out, what good is it being in TV, right? I like your guys' picks. Look, I think Ohio State has been playing brilliant. John, I think you make a wonderful point when you said it a couple weeks ago about them losing to Michigan and that lighting the fire under their wallet side, as you said. I didn't know if I believed it. I wasn't one of the people that's like, hey, Ryan Day's got to get fired. All those clowns in Ohio that were ready to run him out the door. Now he might win a natty. But I was concerned that they were going to lose a ton of momentum going into the playoff. Quite the opposite, as you mentioned. Now they're Will Howard's all of a sudden Joe Montana out there. Ohio State's getting the ball in the hands of their great playmakers. I see them doing the same thing. My heart tells me I want to pick the Texas Longhorns. My heart really does. I just don't believe it on paper. I think Ohio State wins that game. They're too inconsistent. I think Ohio State wins that game. I don't really want to see Ohio State win a national championship, so I'm rooting for Notre Dame or Penn State. That game's a lot more interesting to me than I think you two. I know you guys are both Notre Dame picking, right? I don't know how dead set I am on either one of those teams. I lean towards Notre Dame. I'll be rooting for whoever wins that one if Ohio State wins, I'll tell you.
I think that's going to be a very defensive game between Notre Dame and Penn State. Both those teams really like to fight down in the trenches and really make that point known. Penn State's a great run defense. Notre Dame likes to run the ball. Vice versa. Notre Dame's really good defensively in a lot of ways as well. We saw what they were able to do with Georgia. Even if Georgia had a backup quarterback in the game, they forced key turnovers. They found ways to, get big sacks and win that game against a Georgia offensive line that's obviously really stout and sends guys to the NFL pretty frequently. So I think, Notre Dame is a team that is really good defensively and offensively. I think they learned a lot from that Northern Illinois game. I think one of the cooler stories is that Marcus Freeman, after that loss, took a call from the head coach of the Northern Illinois team and really learned about how they were able to beat them and really has implemented that to almost a lot of their games haven't been close this year. They've played some, but not a bunch, and they're ticking at the right time. I think Ohio State's ticking at the right time. I just don't trust Texas, man. It seems like every single time they get a big lead, then they just fall asleep at the wheel. We saw it against Clemson. They were able to pull away. We saw it against Arizona State, barely to pull away. Don't know what would happen if that targeting call was actually called. But I think this is kind of in a situation where we see Ohio State, Notre Dame win their semifinals matchup. We'll see them in the national championship.
Yeah, with all apologies to Texas fans, the only reason they're there is because Arizona State didn't want to win that game.
I wouldn't say the only reason that they're there. Their kickers have been terrible all year. We don't know if they would have made the field goal.
They are. And the other thing about Notre Dame that I like, I was just really impressed with how they played against Georgia. And I think they're ready, and I think they're playing well, and they're ready for the opponent.
Yeah, Georgia didn't have Carson Beck in that game, but I don't think it made a huge difference. I don't know if Carson Beck playing in that game changes anything with the way that Notre Dame played in that game. I realized that I made all these fancy graphics for us, by the way. I had them ready to roll. Notre Dame, Penn State. Let's go ahead and show it. There it is.
Oh,
Notre Dame, Penn State, Orange Bowl. There it is for us. We've already said our part on it. But any final thoughts on this game, or should we roll into the last fancy graphic?
Roll it.
Roll
it in the last
Roll
minute
it, Texas, Ohio State, for the sake of getting the graphics in. There are your Cotton Bowl, your Orange Bowl,
graphics, baby.
your college football playoff. Those games are Thursday and Friday this week, respectively. And by the time we come back next week, we will know who is playing in the national championship game. We will know the next round of the NFL playoffs. What we won't know, who controls those San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
But be sure to join us here next week on the Final Quarter CBS 8+. We return next week. We hope you join us. And thanks for being with us. First and final thoughts of 2025 for you two on the Final Quarter on CBS 8+.
Well, I just want to say I love your Jesus shirt that you're wearing.
Not the shirt. I was so self-conscious of wearing this shirt out
You
here
look fresh and
today.
clean, man. Don't let anyone tell you different, brother.
It's good look. I like it.
Well, when our boss Dana comments on this shirt, I hope it's a positive one. I'll tell you that
It
much.
should be.
Thanks so much for being with us. Come back here next week. I'm Jake. That's Karthik. That's John. Have a great rest of your week.